In today's video, I would like to share how I deal with grief from the passing of a loved one. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is June and welcome to my channel where I share about my experiences as a single Muslimah striving to lead a deen-driven, purposeful life. If you're new to my channel, do check out my introduction video where I share about what it means to lead a deen-driven, purposeful life. I upload content once a week every Sunday inshallah, but here and there I will also upload vlogs and reviews. Today's video is under the category of life story, and so in this video I would like to share how I deal with grief from the passing of a loved one. So recently a friend of mine lost her uncle, and so this sparked the idea for this video. I am no stranger to grief. I have lost my dad to cancer in 2017, and since then I've lost family members almost every year since 2017. So in 2017, at first in February, I lost my aunt, who was my dad's sister. And then in April, 2 months after that, my dad passed away. And in September that same year, my grandfather, my father's father, passed away as well. So in 2017, I lost 3 family members. And the following years, in 2018, 2019, and even last year, 2020, I lost more family members. And some of them are close, relatives that I hold dear to my heart, like my aunt and my uncle as well. So I'm no stranger to grief, but the biggest grief or the worst grief I faced was when obviously I lost my father, and that was a kind of grief I've never experienced before. I'm not sure whether I'll ever experience it again. I might when my, because I still have my mom, I still have my siblings. So, but from what I've learned dealing with the grief that came with my dad's passing, I hope that I can be stronger in the future to face a similar kind of grief, a kind of grief that makes you feel that you don't want to continue with life anymore for some reason. It's a kind of a paralyzing grief. So that's the kind of grief I want to talk about, I want to address, and how I dealt with it. And hopefully I can remember my own advice, in the future. And also I hope that what I'm sharing will help some of you who happen to listen to my video in dealing with your own grief as well. So the first thing I would like to share when it comes to grief is you have to understand that the grieving process can take a long time. Each person is built differently, each person is able to cope differently. For me, my grief was quite long actually compared to my mom and my siblings when my dad passed on. Then again, I don't know their grieving process. They didn't outwardly show their grief. The grieving process is something that is personal to each person, and each person has their own way of showing it, dealing with it. For me, I've always been the type who wear my heart on my sleeve. That means people can easily tell from my face, from my behavior, how I'm feeling at any given time. So for me, my grief is, you can see my grief, I guess. And for me, yes, like I said, it was a long process for me personally. So you have to understand that the grieving process, it depends on the individual, and you can take as long as you want. It's okay. I'm telling you, it's okay to take your time with the grieving process. Please do not listen to people who tell you to have sabr, as if like having patience in the face of grief means like you cannot show your grief, you cannot be sad, you cannot be crying. No, that is not what having sabr means. Because do you know who Allah calls the one with a most beautiful sabr, or the most beautiful patience? It's actually Prophet or Nabi Yaqub alayhi salam. And he cried himself to blindness, as in he cried so much that he became blind because he lost Yusuf alayhi salam, his son. And Allah calls him as having the most beautiful patience, the most beautiful sabr. So having sabr doesn't mean you don't cry, you don't show people that you are sad. Okay, so ignore those people who tell you to have sabr, which in their definition means you cannot show your emotions and all that stuff. No, that is nonsense. Please don't take their advice seriously. You can have sabr whilst still crying, whilst still feeling pain. Okay, so sabr really actually means being patient with what has happened. Like, you accept what has happened. You are sad, you grieve, you hurt, but you understand that this is Allah's will, and you are patient, you are okay with that decision. That is what it means by having sabr. Okay, so I hope you understand that first and foremost. And also, grieving is perfectly natural. You can grieve, you can cry, you can take as long as you want, because aside from the example of Nabi Yaqub alayhi salam, there is also the example of our Prophet, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He lost his wife Khadijah radiallahu anha and his uncle Abu Talib in the same year, and that year he was grieving for a long period of time. And the scholars, the historians call it the year of sorrow, because he was so sad. Some said that he was even depressed, but not the kind of suicidal depression, but just very depressed, very sad, because he lost two of the most important people in his life. So it's okay to grieve. Take your time to grieve. Understand that your own grieving process is your own. It's personal to you. You take however long it is to be sad and hurt, and it's okay, as long as you understand that this is Allah's will and have sabr, patience in His will. But you can still cry, you can still hurt. So I want you to understand that first and foremost. Secondly, besides feeling sad and wanting to cry always, the grieving process, there is a part of you that will feel resentful against people around you. I'm not sure if it's the case with everyone. Maybe, those who are more sensitive like me, we feel it more acutely. Like, we would look at the people around us who are happy, who are celebrating, or just living their own life, and we think, how can they live their life when my life feels so broken right now? You will feel resentful, and it's okay. It's okay, actually. It's part of your grieving process. You feel like you're dying inside, but the people around you don't see that you're dying. And there is really nothing much you can do about this feeling except being aware of it. and making sure that you don't take it too far. Okay. When you feel yourself being resentful, then you make istighfar, of course. You just astaghfirullah and hope and make dua to Allah that He strengthens your heart. But the feeling of resentment will come up here and there because you lost someone important in your life. Like for me, I lost my father, a parent, and it's devastating. So I don't understand how people around me can just go on with their life when mine seems to have stopped, right? But that's the nature of things. You will feel resentful, and it's okay if you feel that way. Just make sure that you don't take it too far, that you don't start to wish for bad things to happen to people or stuff like that. No, 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 no. Just once these feelings come up, just catch it. Hopefully you can catch it and make istighfar and don't dwell too much on it. Okay, so that is how I dealt with the feelings of resentment whenever they came up. The third thing that I would like to share that might happen when you are in the grieving process is that you'll feel like life has no meaning. You will easily spiral into depression. Again, it depends on your relationship with the loved one that you lost. Like for me, it was my father, right, a parent. So the grief is deeper, of course, and so I did actually slip back into depression a bit. I had a depression episode before, and I slipped into it again, but it wasn't that deep yet. But I did question like my life, like what am I doing? But mostly my question was, I didn't do enough. Why didn't I do enough for my father, right? You start to have all these thoughts like, I didn't manage to provide for him. I didn't manage to repay him for his sacrifices over the years raising me and my siblings. So there are these questions that make you question life, question yourself. And just like the feeling of resentment, the only thing you can do is be aware of your feelings. And when you catch yourself spiraling, then you really need to pull yourself back, make istighfar, and try to do positive things, try to do positive thinking. It's very hard. It's not, I'm not gonna lie, it's going to be a challenge to do that. And for me, I was like depressed for months on end. Even though I don't really show it, I think. I hope I didn't really show it. Cannot remember now. But eventually I managed to get out of that depressive state because Allah showed me ways to overcome my grief, to overcome my depression. And that leads me to the next point, which is, when you are in such a state, it's very easy for a shaitan to come in and to make you feel negative, because negative thoughts will make you stray away from Allah. So Allah will give you reminders here and there. He will nudge things in your direction to get you out of depressive states. So for me, the reminder that I got was, I was on Facebook and somehow I saw this post about what's it about? Oh, because at that time I was unemployed, right? Few months after my dad passed on, I just didn't want to work. Yeah, you will feel like that sometimes. Depends on how strong you are. If you're strong, maybe you can still go to work. For me, I was already unemployed by that time and I wasn't interested to get back to work, so I didn't work. So, but then after a few months, I thought, because money is running out, right? So I need to work. So I was looking for a job opportunity and I saw this Facebook post about a work from home scheme. But when I went there, it was not just a work from home scheme thing. The person who runs that what do I call it, the opportunity, also was talking about some seminar about mindset and whatnot. So I decided to attend, and then one thing led to another, because all this is kind of it's a multi-level marketing opportunity. Okay, in the US they call it the pyramid scheme. But aside from that, the person also, but actually she does all these what do you call that, personal development kind of things on the side also. So one of the courses she was promoting was also about, I think it's mindset and something, cannot remember, but I joined it. And then this leads to my next point, which is to talk to people. When I was grieving, I didn't talk to anyone about my grief. I just kept it inside. And actually I was expecting people to ask me how I was doing, not just immediately, but like months after my dad's passing. I wish someone could check on me, to ask me how I was, then I can just pour out myself. But no one asked me, and I didn't approach anyone, which is wrong. Okay, so you have to talk to people if you want to let out your grief. Don't wait for people to come to you. That was what I did wrong. Okay, so now I know better. So in the future, so even right now, whenever I'm feeling angry or I'm feeling sad or anything, I'll just drop a note to my best friend or some other friend and just rant, because I understand the need to get things out of your chest, off your chest. So you really need to talk to someone when you're in a grieving period. Because I didn't talk to anyone, and then there was this personal development course that the person was promoting, and I joined it. And one element of the course had me seated in a group of people, and we are to share what we hope to hear from others, or like someone important in our life. I cannot remember what's the segment about, but I remember that in that session, it was about my father. I always wanted his acknowledgement, because he's the typical Asian that never say I love you. His love language is through actions, but I didn't know then. Back then, I just thought that he doesn't really care, or he's not that proud of me. So when I was in that group therapy session, I wanted someone to tell me I did a good job, that I was a good daughter. And so someone in the group took the role of my dad, and he told me that he's proud of me and that I'm a good daughter and all that stuff. And I poured out my grief, and I cried so much in that session. But after that session, I felt lighter. I really felt lighter, and it helped me move on from my grieving, from the sadness, the depression I was feeling. Yeah, it took a few more months after that, but after I let out what I needed to off my chest, I felt lighter, and I was on the way of healing already. So I think another part of grieving process that people tend to overlook is the what ifs and regrets in our heart, right? Because the person we love is no more there, and we don't know how else to make things right, because they're gone, and you have so much regrets and what ifs and whatnots. So you let this off your chest, and then you let it go, and that's when you can heal. So that is essentially what goes on during the grieving process when you lose a loved one. So now I want to share about things that you should bear in mind, that you should remember. Number one is always remember that whatever happens is Allah's will. So you have sabr, you have patience for what Allah has decreed. Do not indulge in negative thinking. Do not be too taken in by the what ifs, the regrets that is swirling inside your head. People always have this, I wish I could have said something, I wish I could have done that, or if I didn't do this, then this won't happen. No, 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 no. Do not indulge in this negative thinking, because they will make you spiral into depression, and yeah, it's just not good all around. Of course, you cannot stop those thinking from popping up in your head. They will pop up. They will pop up. The thing is, how do you deal with these thoughts when they happen? Some people just go too deep into it that they spiral and spiral into what we call the black hole. When you find yourself thinking this way, hopefully you're able to pull yourself back and take a deep breath, and make istighfar, and always make dua that Allah grants you strength. And then also understand that the precious people that we lost, they are all lent to us, as in Allah lets us borrow them for a short period of time. All of us belong to Allah. Our parents, our siblings, our children, if we have them, our spouses, if we have them, these people, they don't belong to us, they have never belonged to us, they all belong to Allah. Allah is the one who put them in our lives. He lent them to us, just as He lent us to other people in our lives. Since my dad's passing, I kept this thinking that everyone around me is on borrowed time. Like, I only have them for a period of time before I have to let them go. And I think that makes the grieving process much easier, because you already have this thought, this programming in your mind that everyone will return to Allah eventually. I can love them with all my heart, I can care for them, but I will always have to remember that they are Allah's. They will return to Allah. Allah will take them back when He wants to. Best thing that you can do when you lose a loved one is to make dua for them. Always make dua for them after your salah. Make dua for them that they are granted forgiveness, that you all be reunited in Jannatul Firdaus, inshallah. Do not indulge in negative thoughts about Allah. Okay, I know that when someone passed away, especially suddenly, it's a sudden death, people might have this thought crossing in their mind, like, why did Allah make this happen? Why did Allah allow for this to happen? Do not go into that direction. If you find yourself going into that direction where you start to blame Allah or you start questioning Allah, please make istighfar. Okay, I will relate to you an incident that happened in Rasulullah SALL's life, where he lost his son Ibrahim. And Ibrahim was, I think, just a baby or a small boy at that time. And Rasulullah SALLAM, as you know, he had daughters so far, and this was the first son, if I'm not mistaken. And so to lose Ibrahim was devastating to the Prophet ﷺ. And he cried. And then a Sahaba saw him cry, and he asked, even you too, Rasulullah? As if saying that, grieving is not something a prophet should do, which is wrong, because prophets are humans as well. So Rasulullah ﷺ corrected the Sahaba, and he says the following. Let me just look into the hadith. Okay, whereby he said, verily the eyes shed tears and the heart is grieved. but we will not say anything except that is pleasing to our Lord. So Rasulullah SAW is essentially saying we have eyes that shed tears, so we can be sad, we can cry. We have hearts that feel sadness, so we can grieve. It's okay. But what is not okay is to think badly of Allah, is to say things that is displeasing to Allah. So that's why I say you have to always bear in mind that the people in your life are lent to you. They are on borrowed time, and you have to have sabr in the sense that you accept that this is Allah's will. Okay, so do not think badly of Allah. And that is my sharing for today. I hope that this video, as usual, benefits someone. Grieving is a very, like I say, a very personal process, and you alone can monitor how it goes. And I think that if you have dependents under you, that means you have children, it's more difficult, I guess, to manage your grieving, because you also have to somehow manage your dependents grieving as well. And I have no advice for such things because I have not experienced such a thing. I can only make dua that Allah strengthen you further. But I hope that what I have shared so far can help you in some ways, at least, or act as a reminder somehow. I seriously hope that you all who have lost people in your lives, I hope you all be granted strength and be granted wisdom to know how to deal with your own grief, inshallah. So if you like this video, if you find it beneficial, please like it, please share it with the people in your life. And if you like to hear such content from me, do consider subscribing to my channel. Till the next time, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye.